Hi there, it's Lindsay here. Today I have 4 of my family's favorite fall recipes for you guys. These are family favorites and they're kid friendly. My kids love these recipes and it's a good way to get them to eat things they wouldn't normally eat. And what would a fall recipe video be without an apple pie thrown in the mix? Me and the kids made an apple pie for Ollie's school curriculum this week, so I went ahead and threw that one in there too. And there's a really cute clip of the kids trying Granny Smith apples for the first time. So stick around at the end so you can see that one. But let's get right on into our favorite family fall recipes. So I'm just going to use ham. You can also use, leftover Christmas ham or even canned ham, whatever ham you've got on hand. I also use Swiss cheese, about a cup of it. I also use a deep dish pie crust. Later on in the video, I'll show you how to make your own pie crust if you want to do that instead. And we also have some baby broccoli florets. These are frozen, and some heavy whipping cream. And of course, 3 eggs. We'll also use some salt and pepper in here. But we're just going to evenly distribute all the ingredients. Now this recipe is super easy to alter because you can really put whatever you have on hand. If you've got some asparagus instead of broccoli or cauliflower or whatever you've got, you can throw it in here. So it's a good one to use up some leftovers. This recipe is probably also one of the easiest. It takes a little bit longer to cook, but it's one of the easiest to throw together. Now for the eggy part of this quiche, the part that makes it a quiche, I'm just using 1 cup of whipping cream and 3 eggs and mixing that all together. And I'll just pour it in and make sure it's all well distributed in our pie pan. I usually double this recipe because it keeps really well in the fridge or the freezer, and you can warm it up for breakfasts or lunch or whatever you want it for. It's really good for lunch with the salad. And you'll just bake your quiche at 350 for about an hour. And then I'll usually like to let it cool from being puffy for about 5 or 10 minutes before I cut into it. Our next dinner idea is just going to be Mississippi chicken and mashed potatoes. So I saw this recipe on Freedom Homestead. What I'm using is garlic powder, a little bit of dill weed, some beef broth, some beefy onion soup mix, butter, pepperoncini, and some chicken. Traditionally, this is made with au jus gravy and a ranch packet. But I had this beefy onion on hand, so I decided to just kind of make my own mix. So I used the beefy onion soup mix and cut up some of the bouillon, beef bouillon cube. I just have 1 here, which I think makes 2 cups. So if you're using the smaller cubes, you're gonna wanna use 2 of them. And I added to this some dill weed, garlic, and also a whole jar of pepperoncini with the juice. Now this is a little spicy, so if you don't want all the spice, maybe use half of the jar of pepperoncini with the juice. So I'm also gonna add 3 to 4 tablespoons of butter on top and then put it in my Instant Pot for about 30 minutes. Now if you are using a slow cooker, I believe it's 4 to 6 hours on low for this recipe. While that's cooking, I'm gonna go ahead and make up some mashed potatoes. Now this is simple. You've probably made mashed potatoes before, but just in case you haven't, I'm just gonna cut mine into smaller pieces than normal so it can cook in the 30-minute time frame. And we're just gonna boil those in some water until they are soft and tender. Once my Instant Pot goes off, I just go ahead and turn it off and let out the steam and wait for that pressure to release. While I'm waiting for that, I'm gonna go ahead and mash up my mashed potatoes with some butter, quite a bit of salt, and some pepper. If I feel my potatoes are too dry, sometimes I'll add in a little bit of milk or chicken stock, but on this day I kind of left a little bit of the stock that they were cooked in, so they were just fine. To make it easy for myself, I'm putting my chicken into my KitchenAid mixer and shredding it that way, but you can absolutely shred this with a fork when it comes out. And now I'll just add my shredded chicken back into the Instant Pot and stir it around with all those juices and the pepperoncinis. And I just serve these together in the bowl with a little bit of juice and some salt and pepper on top. You're gonna wanna start with the green beans because they take a little bit longer to cook than the dumplings. But I've just got some bacon that I'm cutting up and we're gonna put that in the pan and let that cook down a little bit. I'm also gonna add about 1/4 of an onion just for flavor. And I'll put in my fresh green beans. My grandmother usually cuts hers up a little bit, but I like them whole, so that's kind of how I threw them in. And we're gonna add a little bit of water, maybe like a cup of water or chicken stock. And we're going to turn this down to low and stick a lid on it and let it cook. I'm using the Instant Pot, but only because I don't have another burner. So this is just gonna be fine on a regular pot. It's actually better that way because you can turn down the heat a little bit if it starts to boil over, which you can't do in the Instant Pot. You're just gonna start with 8 cups of chicken stock in your pot and you're gonna bring that to a boil. While you're waiting for that to boil, you're just gonna start your dumplings. And you can totally use Bisquick, but I actually make my own Bisquick, so I'll just show you how I do that. You're just gonna need flour, baking powder, some milk, salt, and butter. You'll need 3 cups of flour, and to that you'll add 1.5 tablespoons of baking powder and about 1 teaspoon of salt. You'll mix that up and cube in 1 whole stick of butter.
I got you, and you got me too. You can ride out the blue. I wanna do what you want to.
And you'll just mash this around with your fingers until you get about pea-sized pieces of butter in there. Next, you'll add in your milk. I just start with 1 cup of milk and then add it as I need it. You want all the ingredients to be wet. You don't want it to be too dry, but you also don't want it to be too soggy. So I use about 1.5 cups of milk is usually what it ends up being. Once your broth is boiling, you're just gonna spoon in the entire dumpling mixture. And once that's done, you're gonna let this cook for about 10 minutes with the lid off. While I'm waiting for my dumplings to cook, I'm just shredding a rotisserie chicken. If you've got raw chicken, you can cook that up ahead of time. My grandmother likes to boil raw chicken and then keep that in the freezer when it's time to make a quick dinner. So that's something that you can also do.
Staring in
And once I've waited my 10 minutes for my dumplings to boil, I'm just going to put in all my chicken and then a good shake of salt and pepper to this and give it a good stir. You're gonna put your lid on and wait another 10 minutes. First, we're gonna finely chop 1 clove of garlic, and I had like half of a onion left over. But really you can alter this to your taste and whatever you like. If your family's sick, you might want to add a little bit more garlic to this. It still tastes wonderful and you get all those added benefits. So if you're like me and you're too impatient to wait for your butter to melt, go ahead and throw in your onion and garlic here. I'm just gonna add in 1 can of drained corn, 1 can of drained beans. You can use black beans if you like. This is a tri-bean blend. We've also got a can of petite diced tomatoes. I like the petite ones. I don't like big hunks of tomato, but you do whatever your preference is. And we're putting that in with the juice. And to make the soup portion of this, you're gonna add in 4 cups of chicken broth and some red enchilada sauce. We're gonna give that a good mix, and I also added in half of a rotisserie chicken here. If you're making this with raw chicken, go ahead and cut it up and cook it before you put in your onion and garlic. Now I just let this cook out for about 30 minutes just to let all the flavors meld. And I served this one with tortilla chips. My kiddos don't really like to eat it as a soup, so I put it on some flour tortillas for them, you know, without the soup part. But I drained it a little and put it on flour tortillas with some avocado, cheese, and sour cream, and they eat it up.
Hi everybody, today we're making an apple pie. So we're going to show you the ingredients.
For your apple pie, you'll just need 2½ cups of flour, 2 sticks of butter, some sugar, somewhere around a cup, a little bit of salt, ice water, a variety of apples, about 5 to 7, and some cinnamon. We're gonna start out by making our pie crust. You'll just need 2½ cups of flour, a tablespoon of sugar. You can omit the sugar if you're using a savory filling for this. 1 teaspoon of salt. You're gonna give this a good mix, and then you're gonna cut up your butter into small pieces. We're using 2 sticks, but I did pull out 1 tablespoon of this to use to dot the top of the pie. And we're just gonna mix this with our hands until we get pea-sized pieces. Now we're adding in our ice water. I usually start with about 1/4 cup, and then I add a tablespoon at a time until we get a soft dough ball.
Gonna be good.
Alright, taste it.
Sour.
You don't like that one?
Too sour. I'm just gonna throw it in there.
Don't put it in there with the pie. You don't like it? Now I do like to use a variety of apples. Probably Gala's and Granny Smith's are my favorite for pie, but I do cut them thinly so they get done. I don't like an apple pie with really thick slices of apples. I don't feel like they get done enough. And to our apples, I'm just adding 2 tablespoons of flour, 1 tablespoon of cinnamon, and about 3/4 cup of sugar. We're dotting the top of our apples with butter and adding on our top pastry. I'm putting on a little water in between to get those to stick together. And then the kiddos are just helping me crimp the edges of our pie. I'm just using an egg wash here, which is just 1 egg yolk and a tablespoon of water mixed up. And I'll give it a little sprinkle with some sugar. This one bakes at 400 for 1 hour.
I never felt tomorrow closing in this fast. Oh, I guess time's in a rush. Leaves are falling down, but at least they grow back while I'm on a one-way track. Now I know what it means to grow old. Yeah, now I know the time I got, it is just enough.
So there you have it. Those are our fall family favorites. I hope you enjoyed this video. I want to thank you for watching. If you haven't already, you can subscribe for more videos like this. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, and that notification bell will let you know when we put out new videos. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.